Hello, everybody. It's so great to be here with all of you today for our current astrological weather. My name is Amanda Walsh. I'm the founder of Astrology Hub, and I am here with Predictive Astrologer Anne Ortelee. And Anne, it's so great to have you again here this week.
Okay, great to be here.
Like I said last week, it feels like a lifetime happens in between these sessions. And I'd love to start with a question on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like not intense at all and 10 being off the charts intense. Where would you put this week that we're going into?
It's kind of a 9.
Okay.
A 9 to a 10. I read an interesting piece on being in the eye of a hurricane. Somebody wrote that when the hurricane comes and it's banging and stuff like that, and then you want to find the stillness in the middle. So we can see the world is much more banging and yelling. And we talked about that the sun with last week illuminated stuff we should look for. And Mercury this week is talking to us about things. It's giving us messages. So we see people protesting and being angry and so our best is to be like, okay, I can feel that. And then let me sit in my stillness. So I know in my case, I got a little agitated and I decided I needed a Facebook break. And because I was ready to, and I thought, you know what, this is not helpful. I mean, I know I can do it. So somebody wrote me and said, were you being bullied? I said, no, I was turning into a bully. Mercury and Aries. So I knew it was time for me to go turn it off, turn on some Santana, dance a little bit, like that kind of dance. And I shredded documents, I threw away things. I understood that I had this energy kind of pulsing through me. Mercury is in Aries. Everybody's a little wild. Venus is out of bounds in Gemini, answering to the Mercury in Aries. So everybody's like, And then Mercury, of course, is moving into square. The planets that we're looking at is the cause of the pandemic. So we're seeing people protesting and yelling, and we see the healthcare workers standing in front of the protesters in the car, Mercury's cars. That shot of the guy with the mask standing in front of the lady with the sign, kind of like Tiananmen Square where that little guy was standing in front of the tanks, and the healthcare workers saying stop, and the protest. So this is the dialogue energy, but it's also, again, pay attention to last week, this week, because this is telling us what we're going to be dealing with all summer long. June, July, August, September, October, November, December. And that's going to be Mars then. So this is just Mercury. We're just talking now. Mars is we're going to be like actually, fighting.
So you're saying this kind of combative energy is what will be playing out summer, fall.
Yes.
Okay, that's wow. And how do you
feel? That's why
I
said to you when we wanted to do this, and you said, well, I said, oh, Amanda, we're going to be doing this through the fall.
Right. I know, I was like, just come for one. Remember?
And I was like, oh, no. We're going through a process, and you were like, really? I'm like, really, Amanda, honestly.
Yeah, you were like, we're going to be here once a week.
We're going to be here once a week. And you were like, okay, I'll do it, yeah. And Amanda didn't say no. She just went along with me, but now it's kind of like, what do you mean we're going to do this all summer long? I'm like,
Well, yes. Okay. And how do you feel like taking that break? I'm just curious. Do you feel calmer? Do you feel more yourself? Do you feel less agitated?
I knew I need, what it is, the thing to remember is the energy in the heavens, we feel it. So we don't think of energy as good or bad. That's the beauty of astrology. You look at everything and it has a purpose. Right? It has a purpose. And so when Mercury is in a fiery, and I'd said that comment, the friend said to me, well, you seem smart. I'm surprised you're not more successful. And, and you're kind of like, wow, man. But then it's also about, well, okay, how am I going to do it? And Mercury in Aries says, I want to fight. And then you go, and I remember I had an Aries father. He loved to fight. So I was like, okay, I'm willing to fight about things I don't care about. But right now I really care about this. So I'm ready to, say to someone, okay, go ahead and turn blue and gasp like a fish dying, right? And then I'm like, all right, Anne, you need to take it home a little, like, go ahead, look like a Smurf, and I kind of went, is this really helpful? No, stop it. And you have to recognize Mercury and Aries want you. So my cats have been fighting more. Your kids have probably been fighting more. because we're in the mood to be a little more and
Feisty.
just honoring feisty,
Yeah.
Mercury. But when Mars gets in Aries, I know I said mean things about you. You can hear the cat howling in the background. Mars is going to be in Aries from June, July, August, September, October, November, December. That's a lot of Mars. And in the middle there, he's going to stop and go backwards.
The thing is, Anne, everybody cares about this. This is like stakes are high for everyone.
Everybody,
and it's personal for everyone. And it is one of those things where it feels like sometimes it's like, okay, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do and not worry about everybody else. But this is one time where that is like, no, we're really like in this boat together. And so I can see why it would be extraordinarily like combustible, because everybody cares, not only in the United States, but all across the world, everyone cares everywhere.
Yes.
And people are seeing it very differently.
Very
differently.
Aries is the I am. I see it this way, and I am right. That's Mercury and Aries, right? So we go, okay, you're right, I'm right. Now what do? We fight, we go to a separate room and figure it out, right? Because Mercury and Aries does not want to give up. It's right. And it's in Aquarius, which is the sign of groups, answers to the Mars in Aquarius, the sign of groups, which is I want to fight in a group, right? I'm going to fight. I'm like, all right, you want to fight? I hear you. Is that productive? And you have to let that energy out. It's not going anywhere. I mean, I knew I could say nasty things on Facebook till the day was done, but it was going to escalate the Mars. Going to escalate the Mercury. So the analogy my governor uses, you see a little fire start and you go and stamp on it and put it out. You see another fire start, and that's kind of like the little popping up of the little epicenters, You stamp it out so it doesn't catch fire and grow, right? Because that's what happens. A little match and dry brush can make it go. And that's what we're seeing is little matches all over the world, all over the country. And we are a country that prides ourselves on I am. And we have Aries on the 4th house cusp, so we think I am, and we're kind of like, yeah, I am. And we have to honor that that's part of an important component of it, but we also have to think about with the I am, then how do we work with it constructively?
Yeah.
Right. And that's hard. And it's going to be like that all week. What happens at the end of the week, Pluto stations. So the 5 days leading up to Saturday, Pluto is stopped in the sky. He's kind of going.
Well, and usually that means it's even more intense when it's more stopped, intense,
right?
Okay.
And then Mercury's coming in to square him. So so just watch the energy wants to take on Capricorn and Pluto, the authority, as the authority stops and says, okay, let's go back. Let's review what happened. Right. So now we're going to go backwards and review it. But as we're building up, Mercury fighting against the authority. The image I get is like, when you were a little kid and you held your hand out and you were swinging at your brother and they had longer arms so you couldn't hit them. That's Mercury and Aries, right? I want to hit the authority, but they're holding their arm out and stopping me. That police, that healthcare worker in front of the car. You're not going to run him over. So it's understanding we want to know the energy's there. We're going to feel it. We're going to feel really passionate. And then we also really have to look at what is Mercury telling us about. So in the crazy angry, you want to look for the messages Mercury's giving you, which is problems with the food supply, right? Problems with the food supply. So in the summer, when the food supply collapses, you want to have stuff in your cupboard. You want to get some seeds now. You want to plant your garden now. You want to do things that support and sustain you for when Mars, the planet of war, is fighting with these planets. Because
so why are you saying it's food supply for summer?
Because that's what's in the news.
Oh, so you're seeing the foretelling of that being the issue in the summer.
The Sun and Mercury are pointing out what the stories are going to be this summer. So we're going to have a lot more rioting, people much more upset. We see the big lines for the food. We see them throwing away the milk. I talked to a client in Hong Kong. She's like, they're throwing away the milk.
What do you mean?
I know. They had
bad?
No, because nobody's buying it. the restaurants aren't buying it. So the
Oh,
farmers are
right.
plowing it under rather than selling it to rather than giving it to the places that are the food banks. The government said we're going to give money to the farmers to allow them to get the stuff to the food banks, but we know how well the government's running these days, right? The farmers are plowing their crops under because they don't have people to sell it to. The Smithfield pork plant that closed, 400 people out of work, 400 people with COVID, but that's also, we get a lot of meat out of that place, right? So Mercury is telling us, and you want to watch in your own life what you're seeing. What do I notice in my life going on? Because that's what I'm going to be working with over the summer. So one of my clients I was talking to this morning, her husband, she's divorced from her husband, so he's coming over so we can have dinner with the kids because, it's on, because they can't go to a restaurant. And so he gave her a check. And we were talking about the summer, and she said, well, she had the gardener come in, they're planting a really large vegetable garden. And I'm like, well, that's really good because this is, and so it's kind of like you're hearing things and you're thinking things. And so what you want to do is be really attentive to what's going on in your local community. And then also just pay attention to the bigger world. The bigger world is saying food supply. Germany started to open up. It went down. There's been a little bit of noise about a mutation of the pandemic. It's been down. There's been other people saying, that it often has an initial and then it has a bigger version. So, okay, we're hearing that now. So you want to kind of think, if that happens, what am I going to do about it? You have to really remember it's I am time. What am I going to do about it? So I am going to go to the grocery store, throw a couple extra cans. I don't have to hoard, just a couple extra every week. Kind of think about, is there a CSA or farm? Can I grow a garden? This is the time to start it. You were gardening, right?
Yes, I finally got whipped into action with this whole thing. It was like, I'm going to do it now. I mean, it takes 30 to 45 days for these things to actually bear any fruit or, any vegetables or anything. And to create a garden that would truly feed a family, I mean, we'd have to really reduce our consumption. You know what I'm saying? We'd have to really reduce our variety of, our taste buds and all the different kinds of varieties that we're used to. And we'd have to grow a lot of food. So but this to me is just essential. It's like essential questions, essential actions that people can be taking. And it feels so empowering.
Yes.
And it's joyful. I cannot tell you guys. I was squealing over the flower that just came out on my eggplant the other day. It was like,
I'm going to have eggplant parmesan.
Yeah, there's a purple flower. If we could get marinara, I mean, well, actually, tomatoes coming. But I mean, it's important. It is really important for us to be thinking of these things right now. And I know it can seem really scary and overwhelming, and not everybody's in a position where they can grow a garden. But there are very creative solutions. And I don't even have a land where I can do that. I have them all in pots right now. Like, they're all in pots, and you can grow a lot from pots.
Yep. So, and you can also do hydroponic gardening, water gardening, which you sprout. There's a lot of stuff on that. And there's seeds. Remember you get bean sprouts?
Yes.
Right? You can grow your own seeds, and you can get a bunch of seeds and grow it. There's a guy I get my seeds from. His name is Sprout Man. He's got a little website, sproutman.com, and he sells different seeds. So when you get radish seeds, they taste like radishes. You get broccoli seeds, it tastes like, even though the little seed, it tastes like a little broccoli in your salad. So you get some seeds. So you've got some greens. You kind of think about, well, what would I need? Think about how many people I have to feed. Think about, well, what would I do? Kind of plan, because Mercury in Aries is I am, but I am taking action. I am seeing that this can be an issue. How do I do it? And again, obviously, we're talking at it from a point of we have the ability to do that, so the issue also becomes then what happens to the folks that don't have the ability to do it, the people that are going to be hungry, how do we work with that? And I think part of it is understanding how good your local government is, because that's going to be, as the pressure builds on it, and we all live in different parts of the world, as the pressure builds on it, like, what does that look like? And it is understanding we've lived through pandemics before. Human society has survived. We're not going to die. And, a lot of conspiracy stuff too with the Mercury in Aries. That's the Mercury in Aries. Bill Gates has a moon in Aries. And so somebody wanted to look at his chart the last one of my lessons during this last week. So we pulled his chart up, and he has Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn in an argument. So they're meeting in his chart in the 7th house. So everybody's like, he's trying to kill us with vaccines. Whatever, you want to live, So it's not really whether Bill Gates is trying to kill you. It's like, what do you have to do to take care of yourself now in this world to prepare? And we don't often think about that. That's not something, we go to the grocery store, it's there. We don't think about it. And we do find it now. We go in there, no toilet paper. You see toilet paper, you get a roll. So you want to kind of think.
It's good for us to see where all of our dependencies are.
Yes, that's Saturn.
And we talked about this weeks ago. I remember getting angry that I'm dependent on corporations and systems that don't know me, don't care about me or my daughters. And I'm not trying to be anti-corporate. I mean, I'm not anti-corporation per se, but it just like logically, it's like, why have I put my essential life needs in the hands of people that may or may not really care about me and whether or not my children and I eat, So it's like, okay, I'm going to take that power back and start to do something about it. And again, I told you, and I think I've told everybody, when I moved to Hawaii, I had visions of my own garden, learning how to sew and like sewing with my daughters, being in a community where people like take care of each other. I mean, these were some of the reasons I left New York. And it hasn't played out that way because I've been so busy doing all these other things. So it's like, okay, well, time to get working on that vision, like time to actually take some steps towards that. So in that way, and think about it, if everybody did that, if everybody took, just like you're saying, the seeds or the, and I love the idea. I remember when I was in New York, I was hearing about like gardens on rooftops and even like grazing cows on like tops of, huge tall buildings. It's like, well, that'd be so amazing. But, if we all started to do that, I mean, this world, the planet would benefit from that too.
Yes, totally.
So there's so many benefits to us starting to take some of that ownership back and starting to take steps in that direction. I love that you're bringing it up because it gives our audience the opportunity, the foresight, again, the gift of foresight. Astrology gives us this gift of foresight to go, okay, well, if there's another wave of this storm coming and it seems like the theme for that storm is going to be around these things, what actions can I take now? And then you taking those actions takes some pressure off the system, right? Like there are some people who won't take those actions. So by you being less dependent on the system, those who need the system might actually be able to get some more things from the system. So
Right. And now we're hearing about testing, right? We're going to test. But our job then becomes, we're dependent on the reagent that's from China. Why is everything in China that we need here? So even on a government level, we're looking at, what is our dependence on, because we're realizing where those infrastructure, remember Saturn and Capricorn, Pluto and Capricorn is the infrastructure. So it's your infrastructure with the corporations who don't care about us and our government looking at China and going, they don't care about us. Well, China's like, we're completely overwhelmed because we have all these things. And my governor today was talking that, the governor of Maryland announced, I got a bunch of test kits I bought them from Singapore, Korea, South Korea. And his kids looked at him and said, Dad, why didn't you think about buying them from South Korea? He's like, I'm a failure as a governor. My kids just pointed, so it's understanding that the Saturn says, what did you bad? And you have to kind of go, no blame, learn from the lesson, understand it. I didn't realize toilet paper was an issue. Well, you know what else is an issue? Cat litter. I have 2 cats. Chewy was out of cat litter. All right. And I was like, okay, I got to get cat litter. Got it. Like you kind of don't think about what you're used to having always being there, being challenged a little. We were used to having our jobs. We were used to having our deli visit. We were used to having dinner in our favorite restaurant, challenged. So structurally, and then the next part is when people say go back to normal, go now, learn from what you're doing now and imagine the future, what you want it to be, because we learned where the problems are. We're learning where the fail points are, the soft points. And we go, oh, that's a soft point. Wow, okay. All right, let me figure out what I want to do for future. Because we always learn from these things. And the hard times do teach us the most. Yeah.
It's amazing. And I said this yesterday in our live with Kaipacha. My daughter, we were driving in the car and she goes, Mama, I hope we don't go back to normal because then we haven't learned anything. And I was like, wow, 11 years old, like that is really awesome. And so true, because then we're going to keep recreating these problems, all these dependencies. We're going to keep making decisions from the same level of consciousness that created the problems in the first place.
Yeah.
So it takes, I mean, unfortunately, fortunately, I don't know, but it takes this level of disruption in order for true change to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love what you're saying about, you know, what are we visioning in? What are we bringing in? What are we moving toward? And
Mm-hmm.
it's a really important thing for all of us to be tuning into right now.
Yeah, and noticing where the conflict is, because that's the area we're going to have a struggle with, and it may be different. I had one person was talking to me about arguing with her 20-year-old son, 25-year-old son, whatever. He wants to go into Baltimore and come back, and she's like, go on the ball. You know, he works at home because he's got 2 roommates and he doesn't want to work in Baltimore, so he works at her house, but then he goes into Baltimore, and she's like, you're bringing the infection back, and they're having this big argument. And I'm like, well, that's going to be the problem in the summer because you're arguing with him about it now. And you probably are going to say to him, you're not going to do that. It's understanding whatever you're arguing with people about this right now. That's also whatever you're I-aming. That's going to be the space that we have to change. Well,
and how do we soften that on any level? Like this attachment to our point of view, and our need to be right, and then what happens when something threatens that position or stance. And there is a position beyond or above all of that doesn't have to get tossed around in all of it. And for so many people, that's truly tapping into that spiritual practice. I come back to this, but what is your spiritual practice? Where do you find that center in you, that calm place in you, that place that can see a bigger context, and astrology helps with this so much, right? I mean, because it does give us such an eagle's eye perspective,
right?
And we can either, and I'm not talking about bypassing. I know there's like, oh, this is bypass, what's going on? It's like, no, this is the way through it. This is the way through it. I mean, we're all in it. There's no bypassing this thing.
No, we're not getting out of it, and we're not getting out of it right away. So
no, and it's not to not feel anything. I think it's important to feel all the things that come up, and like, oh wow, I'm really attached to that point of view. Maybe, could I see it this other way? Is there space for that? Yeah,
now's not the time. Everybody's really in their point of view. So your job is to decide, how do I want to, if we think of a hurricane, when you're in a hurricane, the walls kind of vibrate, or you're in a tornado for the people in the middle states, and it feels like the train's coming through. And what do? You go into the quiet place, the settled place, the middle of the bathroom, you go in the basement, you go into the center, to the quiet, to the eye of the storm, and you wait. So it is out there. So when you're feeling like, oh my God, the window's going to blow, or what, go into the eye of the storm and kind of go, okay, I'm safe, I'm here, I'm grounded, I'm safe, I'm in the basement, or I'm in the safety zone. You go to airports in the Midwest when I used to install software out there, and they'd have hurricane or tornado shelter space. I'm like, really? We're worrying about a tornado? And then I was in, I don't know where I was, Kansas maybe, and they had a tornado, and we all went into the tornado room. And I'm like, wow, like this is how they live. I mean, I don't have to worry about tornadoes in New York. We have rats that steal the pizza, but I don't have to worry about a wind coming along and blowing me away. So it's, in your own local environment, going into that inner place. And that is really the point. That was why I got off the social media, because I was like in the mood to fight with people. And I thought, is this really productive, Ann? And sometimes it is. Sometimes, you got to say it. But other times you want to kind of think about it and go, okay, that's your opinion. This is mine. Mercury and Aries, I believe what I'm saying is right. And it's not wrong. It's just that there's multiple layers of reality that we have to look at and figure out, well, what's the most important right now? And then the other part is like being in the moment now. Because what's happening, because there's so much fear and anxiety, is people are shooting off there and shooting out there. And if we say, in the moment right now, what do I need? Do I have food? Do I have shelter? Am I okay? And that brings us back to center. And then we go, okay, so what's the plan? And when you do Mercury and Aries as what's the plan, it's very strategic. It goes, all right, I can make a strategic plan. let me figure out what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Let me figure out the strategic plan.
Yeah. And the other thing about what was happening for you on Facebook is probably in the end, it was hurting you the most.
It was.
Your like adrenaline running through your body, your fight or flight that you were in, all that, that's hurting you in the end.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So
and like you said, it's not super productive. So
no, I mean, yelling at some lady in Nebraska that I don't even know. You're going to turn blue like a Smurf and gasp for air. I'm like,
you actually say that?
Oh, I did. Yeah. I did.
I love that you self-quarantined in the quarantine yourself.
I did. I just was like, you're out of control. You're out of control. You have to stop now.
Seriously, that level of just self-reflection and ownership is awesome.
Yeah. But I did post it. And then I thought, you got to stop.
Did you delete it?
No.
Oh. All right.
I let it go. It was on one of those chains, and she was doing this whole, like, everybody's going to die. You all should get over it. Survival of the fittest, blah, 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 blah. We live in Nebraska. We understand the cycle of life. I'm like, all right, I'm just not in the mood for this lecture. And then I just,
Oh, God.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Yep. So, okay, so two things you've said. What's the plan? This is really helpful. Like, if we're going to anchor in on a few
Well, that's the Mercury and Aries positive version. He's strategic vision.
All right, what's the plan?
Positive vision.
Each one of us focusing on like, okay, well, this is all going on, blah, blah, blah. What's my plan, right?
Yep.
And then where's my safe haven?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where can I go to hunker down? Someone I was talking to was calling it a SHIT storm.
Yeah, I'll take that.
And she's like, well, if it's an SHIT storm, what are you going to do? You're going to
you're going to duck.
You're like, you don't want to be caught in that, right?
You're going to put your poncho on, maybe a garbage bag over your head, and let the shit fly around, and then SHIT fly around. The small children in the listening audience. And then let it kind of fly around and then go, okay, that's good.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't get. Yeah. So, okay, where's my safe haven? Is there anything else about the astrology that you want to tell us for?
Well, we have a new moon. We have a new moon on Wednesday night, and that's a really nice new moon, and it's in Taurus, which means it's answering to that out-of-bounds Venus in Gemini, and it's right next to Uranus. So it's asking us to do, okay, what's the creative solution I can do to grow? What's the creative thing I can grow that's a creative solution that will help me get forward with this?
Well, and when the Uranus and Taurus, I mean, this draw, like people feeling pulled to make their gardens and go back to the earth, that's very Uranus and Taurus, right?
Yeah,
like
totally. Taurus,
revolutionizing the way that we engage with the planet and grow food and all those sensual essentials, right?
Yeah. And breaking free of food.
And breaking free of food.
84 years ago when Uranus was in Taurus is when we had the Dust Bowl.
Okay.
Right? And if you read the Upton Sinclair and the books that he wrote about, traveling, John Steinbeck, not Upton, he was the other guy. But yeah, we read the stories and we went, wow, okay. So we don't want to have a Dust Bowl. We want to have a transformation of our food.
Yeah.
Transformation of what we love. And I do think this is helping us get clear on what is really essential and important to us.
Definitely.
Right.
And I am going, I just need to tell everybody
this.
I've been waiting to bring this guy on and it's not astrology, but it's so relevant for the Uranus and Taurus and all these things that we're talking about right now. And I've talked a little bit about creative solutions to the problems that we are having with the earth that seem like we can't solve them. They seem like styrofoam and the issue with our soil and like all the different kinds of things. But this guy that I'm going to bring on is so amazing, has lived here on Maui, has been like in sustainable living with the earth and creating amazing innovative solutions forever his whole life. So I can't wait to bring him on and share some ideas because I think we get stuck on like, well, there's only one way to do it. And we're depleted in this and there's not enough this. And I only live in a place with this much space and, all those limitations when there are solutions for things that seem like the styrofoam thing. They literally have worms that eat styrofoam and poo out fertilizer. It's like, seriously? Like Mother Earth created that creature? That's amazing. So there's things like that we can learn about. And it's actually exciting because
it is because we're kind of like, okay. And yesterday we had the oil collapse, right? It went negative money for an oil because nobody's driving. Right. But then you look at the pictures of pollution, like the pictures of Delhi, they can see the Himalayas now because they couldn't from the pollution. And we had a kangaroo hopping through think it was Adelaide, hopped into town, hopped back out. It's understanding, what we're doing is we're allowing the yang energy to kind of to get smaller, so the yin energy can kind of come up. So I think this is a balancing. And it really is. Like, we're really seeing, I look out my window and it's quiet. There's no honking. There's no horns. I mean, it's weird, but it's also strangely peaceful. And Taurus, I always think of Taurus in its higher version, where you're laying in the garden, the tulips are growing, it's just daffodils. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful time of year, and it's really appreciating the daffodil, really appreciating the good food you have, really appreciating the comfort and the tie of connection, because Taurus is all about, what is it we want to grow? And we're out of Aries now. We're into Taurus. I mean, the sun's out. Mercury will get there sooner or later, but Taurus sun is like, oh yeah, like, okay, let me just sit. Let me just comfort. Let me just enjoy the beauty. And I think that's part of the, we had Lady Gaga's concert, the music, which is very Taurian. And so all these different people singing, plus you get to see their houses. Which I kind of like, ooh, look at what they have on their shelves. Not everybody does the blur option on Zoom. And, so it's good. It gives us a whole different way of thinking. And so Taurus is a kinder sign. We do have the Pluto station and the Mars square, but we also have that, okay, let me get there. And then Sun comes to Uranus and kind of interrupts it. So the hot days this week are when Mercury squares Pluto April 25th, April 26th, squares Athena April 27th, and then it enters Taurus on April 27th, and then it'll square Saturn next week. This week Mars is on the nodes, tomorrow the 22nd, which is a very stressful energy, and then of course Pluto stationing. But we do have an opportunity to think about like how we want to do stuff. What is it we want to do? And then, of course, big explosion, big excitement, new knowledge, April 26th. So those are the hot days this week.
The 25th, the 26th, the 27th, and tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay. And tomorrow, which is the 22nd.
Yeah. 22nd is the new moon. And then the Mercury-Pluto, Mercury is going to square Pluto as Pluto stops. So 24th, 25th, 23rd, 24th, 25th, the intensity builds. And we have kind of a breakthrough and see stuff, which is helpful. But we do have a little bit of a collapse of structure. And then we're finished with the sun gets to Uranus on the 26th. And then we go, and then we kind of breathe. A lot of stressful energy next Monday, too. A lot of adjusting energy to what went on. And, like when you have a big fight or you have a big adrenaline rush or you have a big whatever, as we watch that build over the week, towards the end of the week, we go, oi, okay, got it. And it's really about understanding the duality. Like we have to do that because of the health. We have to do it because we're poor. We don't have any money. But it's also we're learning. What we're really doing is we're negotiating our future. We're negotiating what we need. And so I need this. Okay, I need this. It's that scene in It's a Wonderful Life when everybody wants their money out of the bank, right? And he goes, well, how much do you need? I want it all. How much do you need for the week? Like it's living in the moment, but it's also thinking about down the road what you're going to do, making the plan. Mercury in Aries is so brilliant at making plans. It's so smart, but it's answering to Venus and Gemini. So plan A, plan B. Plan A is maybe they're wrong. Maybe it isn't going to be like this all summer. But if they are right, then I'm going to make a plan.
Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Okay. So plan A, plan B. There's a build up this whole week to the 25th, the 26th, 27th. We're going to see some sort of collapse, some additional collapse in structure. And then Monday, Tuesday of next week is going to be an adjustment period. And we'll be back with you on Tuesday to find out about the week.
Next week, yay!
And
remember, a lot of times Pluto stations are earthquakes. There's some big,
I know, it's so amazing because we're coming up on hurricane season, and it's kind of like, oh my gosh, any like natural disaster on top of all this would just be really hard. Really hard. So Anne, if you just looking forward to the following week, are things equally intense? Are they starting to like?
Yeah, they come.
Break?
they start to calm down when Mercury gets into Taurus. So Mercury
Which
goes
is the 27th, yeah?
Yeah, Mercury goes into Taurus on the 27th. Because then he's answering to Venus, and he's like, okay, let's talk about how we're going to do it. He negotiates a little of this, a little of that, a little of this, a little of that, right? Yeah. So, and I think that'll be helpful. Right. That'll be helpful for folks.
Yeah.
They'll feel like, all right, there's a plan. Because right now the frustration is there doesn't seem to be a clear plan. And when people have a plan, they go, okay, I have a plan on how I'm going to do this. Right. That helps to have a plan, or not a plan. Like, I'm not going to be able to do that. So then this is my choice. Right.
Okay. Well, get your plans going, everybody.
Get your plans going. Yeah.
We can't, there's so much of this. It's like, we can't always rely on these external structures and systems to take care of us. There's a vulnerability there. I mean, we can if we want, but we have to recognize that we're vulnerable when we do that.
So, and that also makes us feel really vulnerable because the systems aren't showing up the way that we thought they would.
But Anne, didn't we know that from the astrology? We knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, you all would look at this year and be like, structures are going to collapse. Especially things like banking and finance and government and
corporations.
Corporations. Like, you looked at the year and you were like, that is what the energy looks like. So it's,
yeah, but nobody went, well, actually a couple people did, like global pandemic. It's like, who knew, but that's the beauty of astrology. You look at the energy, you go, oh yeah, okay, what is it? So that's why I'm saying, pay attention to what you see in your environment, because that's what you're going to be arguing with. That's what you're going to be fighting with in the summer. So when her son says, I want to go live be in Baltimore on the weekend and party with my friends, and she's like, and then you're coming back and you're infecting your siblings and me. No, not doing it. And that negotiation, well, you let dad do it. Dad lives in Baltimore too, right? So, well, maybe dad's going to be living in the basement come the summer, because he's working from home. So we'll see how it plays out. But Mars square Pluto, which is all summer long, squares these planets August, September, October, November, December. We've got 3 big passes. This is just a little tiny pass of Mercury, the messenger, and Apollo, the sun god who shows us, and Mercury who talks to us. So we know that they're giving us a little advance warning about what we're going to be working with.
Anne, I was imagining, because they closed the public schools here through the end of the year officially, and my girls go to the Waldorf school, which is following suit. I'm sure within any day I'll find out about that too. But then I was imagining quarantine children all summer long, so no friends, no play, and now no homeschool unless we get our own thing going, and no ocean. And it's hot. It's hot. I mean, it will be hot. The ocean is the savior in the summer. And so you're talking about themes. People have been sending around a petition to the governor to let people at least run on the beach and at least do their thing at the beach, as long as they're not congregating. And so that was a big, I don't know if they were trying to get 10,000 signatures. I don't know what they ended up getting, but I can see it's okay. People are going to talk about restless. I mean, when it gets hot here, it's pretty unbearable. And to be locked in your house, especially with little children.
Okay, so Amanda, what that says to you is maybe a swimming pool for the backyard.
Ooh, great call. I'll get one of those blow up things.
Those blow up pools. Or remember when, I don't know if you had it when you were growing up, the sprinklers?
Yes.
And they run through the sprinkler and it waters the garden at the same time that the sprinklers are going?
Brilliant.
There you go.
Brilliant.
So because your focus is, oh my God, locked up with the kids with no beach. Well, I'll make a little beach in my backyard.
Very nice. See, plan A. I'll get a plan B too, but this is really good. All right. Well, no, plan B is we all can just go. No, plan A is
we get plan B, go to the ocean. And if we can't, we got a little pool in our backyard.
There you go. Okay. So everybody, whatever is coming up and flaring for you and you're that's going to be awful if that's the case. What is the plan that you can put into place now and start taking steps towards?
Yeah.
Very good. And so helpful. Thank you so much. I know that Astrology Hub and your audience too, everyone's loving these. Thank you so much for your willingness and foresight to know that we would actually need to do this every week and that it would be absolutely helpful for people.
And I got you to go, I got you past every week. I'm like, yeah, Amanda, every week. We'll do it till, I said, no, we're going to do it till January.
And we just stopped our weekly forecast like a month before because I was going to write my book. Yeah.
I know. Well, you can still write your book.
Yeah.
You're going to put the kids in the pool in the backyard and you're going to write your book on the deck and get a little shade for the pool too.
Oh my God.
You know, one of those little tents that goes over it. So it's, if it's really hot, or put it under a tree. So,
God, you're brilliant. Thank you. All right, everybody. If you want to get summaries of all the special editions, please go to astrologyhub.com/podcast. Sign up to get the alerts. Next week, we're going to have the Saturn workshop available that we are partnering with Ann on. So the Do Your Saturn workshop is going to be available starting next week. And then I think the second week in May, we're going to be doing a live Q&A for it. So if you're interested in your Saturn, how to do your Saturn, which Anne is talking both your natal Saturn, but if you have moved to a new location and you're significantly farther away from where you were born, it's important to look at the Saturn for where you're at. So someone was asking about that last week. I'm glad that you helped clarify that.
It's very important. They both count. Yeah.
And what about transiting Saturn?
Well, transiting Saturn, you look at your Capricorn house. That's where he's living. So wherever Capricorn is in your chart, the back end, 23. He's between 20 and 0. 20 of Capricorn, 0 of Aquarius this year. So he's in that little patch, which is the Virgo patch of Capricorn. So Virgo is the, what's the work I have to do, the gardening, the potting, the crafts. It's all that stuff. What's the tasks ahead of us?
Yeah.
And so it's very task oriented. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So that's going to be available starting next week. And we're really excited to make that available for all of you.
Yay.
So
Thanks,
Anne, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
See you all next week. Everybody. Bye.
Aloha.
Aloha.